Las Vegas has no shortage of myths and urban legends, and the landmark is no exception to these. Today we're going to look at an aspect of the landmark that no one can seem to agree upon. Did the restaurant at the top revolve? This is a hotly debated topic, even with former landmark employees unable to decide whether it did or did not, with some claiming it did and some claiming that it didn't. But what's the real answer? Well, in order to answer that, we first need to take a look at how the landmark was laid out. Here you see a diagram showing the different levels of the tower itself. The floors that people commonly claim revolved are the 27th floor inside the dome and the 31st floor up on the very top above the dome. Of all of the newspaper articles written about the landmark, even the ones specifically about the restaurants and the bar, and the landmark's advertising materials themselves, not one makes any mention of a revolving restaurant or bar anywhere in the hotel. While this does not provide any proof that it did revolve, it also doesn't provide proof that it didn't. So let's look at the technical aspects. In order to understand this, let's first take a look at how revolving restaurants work. Revolving restaurants involve only a portion of the restaurant actually doing the moving. The elevators, kitchen, stairwells, bathrooms, and other things are usually in the center of the room. The place where people dine rotates around the center in one or the other direction. A motor, gears, and rollers are positioned beneath the floor, which allows the turntable to slowly move, with people, tables, chairs, and other things resting on top, while everything else remains stationary. Now let's review some of the requirements for a revolving floor. First of all, it has to be round. Second, there can't be any stairways or elevators or any other features that move people to and from the floor. Then there can't be any plumbing, gas lines, or ventilation ducts anywhere intersecting the floor that actually moves. And finally, there can't be any stationary structural features such as walls, columns, etc. that would prevent the floor from moving through them. Now let's take a look at the structural details of the landmark itself. Here you see the actual blueprints of the 27th floor of the landmark tower. Now, these are 50 years old and a little tough to read, so we'll use this version of them instead, which have been extrapolated from those original blueprints with the help of a licensed general contractor in the state of Nevada. One thing that's commonly overlooked by most who remember it revolving is that the 27th floor contained not one restaurant, but two restaurants and a lounge. There was the Sunset Room, Club 27 Lounge, the Mandarin Room, and storage for both restaurants. If only part of the floor did revolve, that means that if you started in the Sunset Room, you would eventually make your way to Club 27, then you would make your way into the Mandarin Room, and end up in storage before making your way back to the restaurant you originally started in. This is not a typical configuration for a restaurant that has a revolving feature. Typically, it is one single restaurant that you stay in all the time. You would not be switching through multiple restaurants and a storage room throughout the course of your meal. Putting common sense aside, let's look at the actual structural features of the 27th floor. We know that the stairwells and elevator shafts can't move, so that eliminates this area in the center of the floor. Then we have bathrooms. Now, we know that plumbing fixtures can't be moved, so we know that that eliminates this section of the floor from the possibility of revolving. Do you see all those small squares surrounding the inner perimeter of the floor? Those are steel support columns, which are running uninterrupted throughout the entire dome, from the top trusses of the upper dome to the lower trusses in the lower dome. This is a cross-section of the landmark's dome, taken directly from the original blueprint. Here you can see the beams running uninterrupted from the top truss to the bottom. supporting both the 27th and the 29th floors. Since these beams run all the way through the dome, they are unable to move. That means that the next section of the floor also would not be able to move through them, eliminating this section of the floor from a possibility of revolving. This brings us to our last obstacle, walls. There are two walls in particular on this floor which would make revolution impossible even for this outermost ring of the floor. These two walls are attached to support beams that we mentioned earlier. That means these walls are unmovable and would be unable to move with the floor while it revolves. This means that any tables or chairs or people that are in the way would end up hitting that wall while the floor moves underneath it. This eliminates the possibility for any section of the 27th floor to revolve in any way, shape, or form. Now let's take a look at the 31st floor. The first thing you'll notice is that it's not round, but an octagon in shape. This means that no part of the floor near the outer perimeter could possibly rotate. Now let's look at the structural features. You'll see the major problem here is with the stairwells and the elevators. While the main stairwell and elevators are in the center of the room, one of the stairwells is off to one side. Combine this with the storage closet and the bar, and you'll see that there really is no place on this floor that any ring could be formed to make any part of this floor revolve either. So while many have fond memories of the landmark revolving at some point in time, the evidence just doesn't support it. Nor is there any tangible evidence to support that claim. If you liked this video and would like to learn more about the landmark, please subscribe and visit our website.